others to observe, notice, interact, and experience the value shifts for practicing church as heart-to-heart connection. And we're so delighted that you've been with us, even up to this last day on Thursday. And it's my delight to introduce Josie Willer. So we'll hear more about you. And we're looking at the idea and the reality of what it looks like to have children in the mix of this relational revolution, of forming and forging a vibrant family of Jesus in the foundry of God's blazing hesed, his loving kindness. And so many times it's like the church to look at the children as interruptions. But what if the children are not interruptions, but are an invitation to cultivate that belonging that we're looking for? Mm-hmm. And so it's my delight to have Josie on board, and it's like us to check in and listen to Jesus a little bit about what he has in mind for this conversation. So would you like to check in first?
Yeah, let me just
take your time.
Yeah. I'm going to use the words ecstatic joy. And I've had one of those returning to joy sort of days after some really, really difficult days. I feel like this is a fantastic plug for just the term joy fuel. Because I feel like I have the tools now to bounce back, experience resilient joy. And I just got off a leader team call, and getting to connect with those people through these rhythms just like makes me want to bounce off the walls. And even before that meeting, I took some time to sit at my keyboard and just, I told my leader team I had some aggressive worship time before we got on to just get it out. And it was aggressive worship, and it was beautiful. And I'm just so full of joy. I wish, as we're talking about kids, my husband has the kids right now, so I wish that they were on a lot of my calls. They are, so could have modeled that, but it's all good. So I am all in, just very, very joyful, very glad to be here.
Well, I could feel your joy, the ecstatic joy that's coming from you, and thank you for showing up after a leader team call and serving all those wonderful people through facilitation and coming through the whole process of aggressive worship. And so I might have some curious questions about that phrase and what that means for you, your personality type, your calling, emotional regulation. It could be returning to joy. So I'm vibrating with a lot of gentle curiosity already. So thank you. I'll check in myself. So I just might need some seconds here. Give me 20 seconds. Okay, I am checking in focused, grateful, creative, and hungry. And so as we're paying attention to all of the things in this life, I'm focused and really grateful. I was part of Tony's leader team a little bit earlier today, where I was brought to the hot seat of gentle curiosity for my Luke 10:2b harvest field. And from that, I was deeply served by the women. I was the only guy, by the women on the call, in such a way to really thread the needle at my life in this time with some brilliant questions, some brilliant coaching as I was receiving these questions. And it brought up uh, a upgraded, crafted prayer for me. And so
Mhm.
I'm super excited about it. Really grateful. So I'm in that creative mode. Just left the house, did a little walk with my wife, and I just came back and I'm super hungry. And I thought that you and I were going to be on a different call and not live. So I am super excited and super surprised to sit here with my little bit of food. I may ask permission just to nourish myself as I eat, and I know we do that on leader teams,
Yeah.
just to get some brain food. So I am surprised that I'm doing this particular call, but equally, yeah, I thought we were doing training, coaching, just a typical thing, but no, we're doing a parent thing. So um, just picking up from just 2:59 on my time. But I'm delighted to do that. I love to fly the plane, build a plane and flight. So I am all in.
Awesome. And nosh away. I'm
Thank
usually
you.
the one every call, so I don't know what to
You
do with my hands.
you are. I'm always having a coffee or something, but I think I have 4 or 5 calls today, so it'd be good to stay fueled.
Hmm.
Well, I'd like to invite us to, as people are watching this, I would love for them to observe what's going on, pay attention to watch until. Maybe there's a phrase or a moment of interaction with us and the Lord that really registers something on their heart, resonates with them. And so we look forward to hearing from y'all in the comments or at a future time as you watch the recording. And so I do not have any prepared questions.
Woohoo.
And that makes it fun sometimes to see what spirit might bring up. So I've been finding it helpful practice, as we've seen modeled from Tony and from some others, just to take 2 minutes of just quieting and asking the Lord what his agenda may be, what topics that are inside of you and your story and your history that carry the sound that needs to be articulated in this hour as others will watch this. So how about we take 2 minutes and just kind of listen around that, and we come back and share what that is. We'll keep our cameras on as per our instructions. You can mute if you want to, and we'll share after 2 minutes. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Let's do it.
Mm.
Would you like to share first?
Yeah, I had a whole bunch come to my mind. I just, asked Jesus what his heart for this discussion was, and I just felt like I got some bullet points. But the first thing I heard was play and permissioning. Um, there's a deep need, I feel like, in our adult um, vibrant families of Jesus, leader teams, churches, small groups, whatever, for a sense of play, a sense of permissioning. I love those words together. And I could see like a clock, like the mechanisms and all the cogs working, and I could see our different rhythms and everybody's roles, and children were just another piece of that,
Mm.
and not a separate entity. Because if they're interrupting us, that means they're a separate event from the event of Bible study, deep discussion, church, whatever. But they're not a separate entity. It's all one thing. So if it's all part of one thing, a piece of the same thing can't really interrupt itself. So I'm circulating with that imagery.
Mm.
And then thirdly, I just thought of specifically doing check-ins with our children as part of our in-house family rhythm, not just when we're having our local church expression in our home. I'm just reminded that develops so much joy, so much in their brains and development, and it's like a tiny rhythm. A couple simple things, a couple simple questions, results in so much. So that's where I'm circulating. I'm in.
Thank you. I have questions bubbling up from all of that you've shared. Really great. So I'll share what I got, and I'm also noting that I will also allow you to introduce yourself a little bit more fully. This is more of just even us getting our relational circuits on, and so oftentimes we'll prepare our meetings like that, and then we'll maybe turn our focus with that introduction to the listeners. So for me, sometimes it's sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, scriptures. These were words with an image. I was impressed on me immediately that the preciousness of you in the heart of the Father, and I heard that Josie is a gem. Josie is a gem. Polishing her, from his perspective, I was sensing is a privilege and an honor of mine through these years. So in that setting of a polished gem, it's my delight to see her fitted and fitting within my vibrant family of skilled ninja warriors. In the body of Christ, and this is a specific niche. Yet the polishing is not without pain. Sometimes there are days when the gem feels cut and polished in the formation of that. Yet it is so that it shines all the more in its radiant color. And she and Ross, your husband, is a friend of mine, she and Ross are a vibrant family of Jesus with good soil that will yield orchards and legacy of heavenly delectable fruit. And just felt like a spotlight on your neck of the woods in your ranch land of what might be part of God's activity. How does that land on you? Any of that before we move on?
Just makes me feel really tender. Just a little bit ago in leader team, we had a listening moment, and I felt Jesus tell me that I've come a lot further than I think I have, and was revisited with
Mm.
way previous imagery from you of being a bird flying out of the nest. And so
Mm.
I feel that very thematic, a gem being polished and ready for placement is, very similar to a bird's muscles developing and getting ready to fly. And I feel very safe.
Good. So good. Well, let's hear from you a little bit about your name, where you're tuning in from, and maybe what your role is in Luke 10 and what that means for you, just to give a bit of an orientation for our listeners, and we'll dive into some questions.
Yeah. So my name is Josie Wailert. My husband's name is Ross. Like was mentioned before, we have a 6-year-old named Kinsey. She's almost 7, and a 3, almost 4-year-old named Nellie. And we have a lot of fun. We ranch here we're in the northeast corner of Colorado. So our ranch is like 7 miles south of Wyoming. So we're right up in there. And we spent some years in vocational ministry, and we came to Luke 10 out of burnout and entered a world of belonging and rest. And we've just really enjoyed our new rhythms. We're just in a place of, I think, that shalom, the right amount, in the right place, in the right time. Yeah.
So good. And what do you do with Luke 10?
Oh yeah.
What is
I
your level
know.
of training? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I've been in facilitator training for, I don't know, a while. And right now I am at the leader team stage. So I am being trained, co-training along an awesome gal named Hala, to facilitate leader teams. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to check out the last video and have a debrief of that previous call you had. Well, good. So let's dive into some of the topic at hand. You had mentioned that you do check-ins with your family, and it sounds like God is moving you from burnout to belonging. I heard you say burnout to belonging with the right amount of shalom, maybe like the Goldilocks.
Yeah.
Just a right amount of shalom. So how is these tiny, and you mentioned tiny rhythms. So it sounds like you do them maybe at a Luke 10 local environment, but there's also the tiny rhythms that are transforming your children. Can you tell me what that looks like in your home?
Yeah, so we do these things at home every day. So when I say rhythms, when I say, the little things, the Luke 10 things, I mean, we do check-ins. We get present with ourselves, with God, and just take inventory without shame of what's going on inside us, physically, emotionally, relationally, spiritually, and get a chance to be cared for the way that we need it, and be attuned to ourselves and with Jesus. And so with our kids, it's all the same thing. It may look a little bit different, but we have really vibrant rhythms of checking in with them. And Ross and I have our own rhythms that we do, just the two of us as our own CO2. But with our kids, that we have things we do every night before bed. Like we read a little bit of a book. Kinsey reads mostly now, and we have sort of 3 songs that we do before bed, and we all sing together, and we do a check-in, and those are typically pretty light. Our kids, especially now that it's summertime, I'll typically start or phrase a check-in with, what was your favorite part of the day? And start with that, that kind of lends itself to joy. And, that answer usually looks something like, we went to the park and I went down the yellow slide. We got to go to the museum and I played with a pretend fish. We went to the library and I got a new Princess Mermaid book. And they get really bubbly and excited and they want to talk all about it. And sometimes, we'll leave it at that. And sometimes, we'll go a little bit more guided with, did anything make you happy today? Did anything make you sad today? Or what do you want to share with me about your day? And just ask really, really open questions. And my Nellie's pretty much always on cloud 9, our youngest. She snuggled a cat, or she, chased the dog in a puddle, and everything is great. Our oldest is a lot more in touch with her feelings, and has a lot more of a well-rounded experience of her emotions. And so, she might have something heavy today.
And how do you handle those heavy emotions? Do you help name them for her? How do you regulate them? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I try to let her name them herself. So I'll offer her some options. Did that make you feel sad? Did that make you feel angry? Did that make you feel a little bit of both? Did that make you feel frustrated? Or did that make you feel disappointed when you didn't get to be first in line at school today? So I'll offer a couple different options, and then she'll kind of go, oh, that one really fits. I was really disappointed because I wanted to be first in line today, and I didn't get to be. And then she's really good she's just developed this beautiful emotional intelligence around that. And then she'll say a full-on sentence.
Right.
I felt disappointed because I did not get A, B, and C that I wanted, and that makes me sad. Oh, wow, honey. Thanks for telling me that. And try to really be intentional about, now that we've named it, I want to appreciate that she shared it with me and thank her for that. And, that would make me sad too.
Mm-hmm.
Try to join her in that. And then we'll offer the options. There's the same things that we offer with heavy emotions with adults. We typically ask, did you just want to share that? Did you just want to speak that and be heard and have us be present with you? Or how would you like us to be present with you? Would you like one or all of us to pray for you or with you? Would you like us to take some time to just be quiet and see what Jesus might have to say around this or a specific question? Do you want to hear a story about when I was your age and I felt that way? Or, maybe my opinion or my advice, like what I might have to offer on this. I don't typically ask my kids if they want coaching in that word, but, I typically ask, do you want to talk more about this and, explore some ideas on how to handle this or something along that dialogue. I typically will say, I don't typically use, the exact vocabulary around coaching. But we just, almost always Kinsey wants to listen to Jesus. And
I was going to ask you, so your facilitation skills that you've learned in these rhythms, and even in the training, you're bringing that facilitation of heart-to-heart connection at home. Mm-hmm. And you're saying that the one she chooses the most is listening to Jesus. And what does that look like?
It's been a lot of fun. for me to watch. I love to observe and just kind of see it all play out. And we were very intentional when we teach on listening that this is practice. And I said earlier, I said, well, it's all practice until we die. We just practice and practice and practice. That's all it is ever. And we practice, you don't have to arrive.
Join the club. Join the club.
Yeah, right. Like we practice. But I will start with the shift we've seen with listening. So even like 8 months ago, when Kinsey would ask to listen, said, I'll frame it like, okay, let's just take a moment and we'll just be quiet. And we're going to ask Jesus what he feels about this, or what he wants to say to me about this, or whatever. We'll kind of try and give it some structure there. And then we'll just come back and I do the same sort of disclaimers with my kids. Like, if anything makes you feel icky inside, that's Jesus is not going to make you feel icky inside. So if we have thoughts that make us feel icky inside, that's coming from somewhere else. And whatever you feel in your body or whatever comes to mind, if you have any songs come to mind, we work through the SIFS acronym, using examples that are more to her age. And
what is that SIFT acronym about?
So it's a great way to just pay attention to how God might be talking to us. So we might feel sensations in our bodies. I have had, even earlier today, actually, I have socks on, but I could feel my feet on grains of sand on the beach. You might feel warmth or a tingling, or whatever sensations in your body. You might have images come to mind. Some people describe it like a movie scene playing out. I see Lord of the Rings scenes a lot because that's part of my language and that's how Jesus speaks to me.
Don't we all?
Yes. If you don't, we'll have coaching later. But you might have like a singular picture that comes to mind. Something visual that, any kind of imagery. You might have feelings that pop up in your body. You might just get this overwhelming feeling of joy or peace. Thoughts you might have, like earlier, I had all of these, phrases that came to mind, or maybe one specific word that repeats over and over. Jason, you've shared a lot of things that feel very poetic, lots of, like full-blown beautiful poetry that has come to mind. You might have a song that shows up. I've sang a lot on these things. It just that kind of spills out. You might get verses of a specific song or a melody without words. In scripture, you might have, even if you don't know the verse reference, you might go, I know the joy of the Lord is my strength. That came to mind. Or I'll fly on wings like eagles. I might not know where that actually comes from, but you might have the words of the verse come to mind. So that's just something that we like to use to, I think it helps us pay attention to all the different ways that God might be wanting to speak to our hearts.
And would you say that Kinsey or Nellie respond a particular way that Jesus is impressing something to you as a family, to them? Are they one of those letters of the SIFs?
Mm-hmm. Music comes to her a lot. She's very musical, and that speaks to her heart, and she's always singing. And so, I've noticed that being a trend. And as we've practiced, I've noticed, like Jesus said this very specifically. And even when she was, this was all very new for us. And when she was 4, she had an accident and she was stepped on by a horse, and we were on the way to the hospital. And she told me, God said that I would be okay.
Wow.
And then she said, but then I still felt scared. And God told me it was okay to be scared and I was going to be okay. And so she was 4 years old when that happened. And she'll have very specific, Jesus said this. And it's like, wow. But all of that to say the practice comes, we don't just start off doing this perfectly. About 8 months ago, we were listening around. Our families just had some really heavy things to carry this last couple years, and um, some of that has been especially heavy for Kinsey and a little traumatic. And we were processing some very heavy emotions, and she wanted to listen to Jesus. And yeah, this was about 7 months ago, I think. And we had our time of quiet, and I asked her, now, would you like to hear what I feel like I sensed from Jesus first, or would you like to share what you sensed from Jesus first? And she says, well, Jesus told me to figure it out.
Really?
I was like, yeah, you're 6. This is figure it out. But, well, this was a great practice, and
Yeah.
let's walk through that a little more, because I don't think he expects you to just figure it out on your own, honey.
No. Well, Josie, if I could just name a few things that I just see in the conversation in your parenting with you and Ross, even for others that are walking through, how do we practice these rhythms that maybe we see on leader teams where people are checking in, we have our CO2, but how in the world do we do it with our children? And I really find uh, the descriptions you're giving are such an invitation, like, wow, it's not about perfection. It's about being present. It's not about being perfect. It's about repetition. When we want to master a skill, it's not about getting it perfect. It's about repeating it. Community practice. But I love how you're parenting each child differently, customized parenting, because they're galaxies apart in personality often, but such rich validation
Mm,
in all emotions are valid, right?
mm,
I'm scared. I'm scared, right? And you're bringing such permission for all of the emotions to be expressed in
yeah.
this stage of development for the kids. It's been said that trauma is painful, but the real pain for trauma is to be alone in it.
Mm,
And validating what you guys are doing, that what, being scared is okay, and she even hearing that Jesus is with me in it,
mhm.
it really makes all the difference. And so you're modeling that well. So my question is this how you grew up? How did you start learning how to parent like this? And answer as much as or as little as you want. But how are you learning how to model this? And I'll frame it in this way, back to our topic: attachment versus agitation. So as I'm hearing you describe, and I know you're a brain science nerd, so the Hesed is the sticky kind of love,
Mhm.
where it's that attachment with love at the center of the hub that Jesus talks about. The loving kindness, the loyal loving kindness of God is what we're about in Rediscovering Church, as heart to heart attachment or heart to heart connection. So how for you is this new model of just beautiful attachment that you're describing versus maybe how you and Ross grew up, or how you were shown in ministry, knowing your story, that kids were the interruption, kids were the agitation, back
Mm,
to your image of the clock and the mechanisms to paint the picture here. Children are not another piece, you said. There's no separation, and the same thing cannot interrupt itself.
mm,
So talk to me a little bit about how children are part of the attachment and not the agitation.
yeah. I grew up quite differently, and with um, honor and grace, I will say that it was very much so a environment of anxiety and agitation. And I I learned attachment for the first time with Ross. And I before I even really had an understanding of what, that earned secure attachment even was, um, I am still very much so in awe of how God works when I look at our story and how we were placed together. Because statistically, I should be in a much different story. So and that's probably a good plug to say too, you don't have to have an understanding of what it is for God to develop it inside your heart. Because God allowed me to experience this beautiful, secure attachment to Ross before I had any understanding of what attachment was, of what the nuances of my own traumas were. So I have been in a place of feeling securely attached. I mean, just a few years, really. My experiencing this and these rhythms through a parenting lens, I experienced, it's been about the last 3 years. It's a good place to call out Floyd Maria Bellier. Was first, I felt loved like a child with them, with my mom and dad. And we will say in the same timeline of joining Luke 10 and starting to learn about these rhythms, we also went to intensive therapy at Restoring the Soul in Colorado, and beautiful place where all of these things could come together. Our experience, we knew we wanted to parent our children differently than what my experience had been growing up. Ross had a beautiful childhood, had parents who treated him with respect when they would parent and discipline. And I feel like they modeled really well what it means for discipline to be discipling versus punishment and behavior modification. So he had a beautiful background, and I have a lot of beauty in my story too, but there was just some stuff to wade through to get to where we are. And we did not experience church as family in our time as pastors. I actually have a story from the time Kinsey was born. She was coming to youth group with us. We focused on youth and music ministries, and we just brought her with us. And in one church plant we were a part of, it was really beautiful. She would, I just set up a pack and play there. She'd take a nap. Whatever kid heard her on the monitor first went and grabbed her, brought her up. It was like very much so we had a family atmosphere with this group of kids. It wasn't that way with the church itself, but with the youth group, there was just something different. And I felt a lot of that was because we did church as family. And I always felt it was important to have Kinsey with us at youth groups so that kids, for some of our kids in some of the towns we were at, I mean, there was one town, it was like 72% of the kids that attended our youth group had one or both parents in prison. So I felt it was very important to have her there, just to model family, to see it all working together. And oh my gosh, to have, high school football players walk in big and gruff and tough, and then they want to cuddle with a 7-month-old, like nothing beats that. And one church we were on staff at did not see that the same way as we did. And we were pretty firm that Kinsey would go to youth group with us, and our pastor did not agree. So he went behind our back and hired a babysitter that I had never met and informed us that Kinsey would be going to the babysitter instead of youth group. Yep. And we did it because you're supposed to submit to your pastor. And, that's not the only story, but that was just the, we were expected to, both of us, be on stage. And then we were also reprimanded because our 3-year-old wouldn't be sitting perfectly still in the seat while we did it. And we had no support we had youth group kids that wanted to babysit and hang out with our kids, but as far as like adults or members of the church or anything like that, we did not have any kind of support community. A few people here and there, but nothing that we really, made deep connections with. And so the shift from that has been one that our kids now are just another part of our little church here at home. We don't have a title on our local Luke 10 group. I'd like to call it family night, but we haven't I haven't brought that up much yet. But it's just a completely different atmosphere, completely different. And it's very easy and it's very light. Yeah.
Very easy and very light, contrasted with the other picture you described. Now, I know that as you're facilitating with Luke 10 and doing a terrific facilitation experience, as I get to spend time training and debriefing you. And I'm wondering if you can comment to maybe the listeners what it looks like for moms with kids. So moms with kids, with young kids, this goes with dads as well, but particularly moms with kids, you're co-facilitating, co-managing, as we say sometimes, for the office people, this new leader team. And as I'm training you in Hala, both of you will show up. Hala has a newborn there, and you have your kids running around. It happens on leader team, and it happens while we're debriefing. And what has it been like for you to show up in that space? And what would you say to any moms out there that, I can't do ministry now because I have this going on? What would you say to them?
Oh, it's such a release. It's wonderful. And it's been really exciting because I think we get to explore sort of that mother nurturing spirit of the Holy Spirit that you can't really get any other way. Like there's just a specific motherhood to God that we get to really live out in the season that we're in right now. And it's just joy. And again, I would say permissioning is a huge one, but it's not even permission to be mom while you're on the call. Because when we have to do that in our previous world, it's, I'm so sorry, my babysitter didn't work out, so I'm going to bring my kid today, and it's going to end up being okay. Or, man, I apologize, I'm going to nurse while I'm on my Zoom call. Well, it's not even permissioning to bring in the inconvenience, because they're not an inconvenience to start with. They're not a burden at all, ever. And it's a whole different experience. And I've really enjoyed that aspect specifically with Hala, because there is a piece of, when I'm being mom, I won't be fully here 100% of the time. But if she's running a call and she needs to run off and be with a baby, great. I know what's on the agenda for today, and I'm just going to take it and run with it until she's ready to return. And so she does not have to neglect her kids in order to do ministry. She doesn't have to, or we don't have to sacrifice them on the altar of ministry, is the terminology that I've used before. And she doesn't have to, leave the group on standby either. It's a both and. And that's not to say that we don't need our time without our kids too. So as I'm speaking, I don't want to come across like we have to be all together all the time. And if you need some time with Jesus on your own, that's wrong, because that's swinging the pendulum the other way. And we're not saying that either. It's this space of both and a space of, truly being joy fuel. And like for my meeting earlier, is it permissible and in fact wonderful if I had my kids popping in and out during the call? Yes. Is it permissible and wonderful that Ross wanted to take both girls so that they could go ride their horses and move some cattle together? Also, yes. It's all okay.
Amazing. And watching you and Hala both demonstrate that and display that is really heartwarming. It's that ecosystem of grace. And watching you on this leader team that's brand new, I would join it. I would be a participant, led by the both of you skilled practitioners. It's been a really, really great delight. Did you have any other questions or anything else that you had thought about bringing up? We'll come to a time of even just listening a little bit more, but anything else that you were prompted on before you came on or as we were talking?
I think I would just add, 'cause I still have, reservations when my kids come on, because I do want to honor people, and you know, not everybody, as parents, we do have this thing built into us where we can kind of tune it out more than other people. And so I want to honor, like, not everybody can just thrive if we bring some chaos today. um and I've had reservations with that, and every single time I have brought my kids into this space, I hear nothing but really beautiful feedback.
And
And
how do you hear that feedback? How does that come about for you to know if they get bumped out, you get bumped out, and what is that all about? How valuable is it for that you to hear the feedback that of what they're experiencing? How do you know that?
one, it's totally invaluable to get that feedback, and that's how we learn, right, is by reflecting on what we've experienced. But I have heard that through, like, closing rounds, in person and online. And I think even to our large in-person conference we had last year, we had a time for people to share highlights, maybe, or I had multiple people just coming up to me to tell me that one of their highlights was that we had brought our kids. And, I heard from one lady that the best part of her weekend was when Kinsey came and interrupted their table church, their group discussion, because she had heard that she gave really, really good hugs. And so my 6-year-old wanted one of her hugs. And she's like, heck yeah, absolutely. Come here, kiddo. And that was like the best thing for her. So I've heard it through, multiple different methods, but
So
yeah.
so you mentioned the word reservation. So for you showing up in ministry, you have even still have some reservation there, but because we're this community practice ecosystem of grace where we listen to voices, you're getting feedback and permissioning, and not only that, but exhilarating praise, like your kids are blessing my socks off. And
Yes.
so how does that feel, like not being in a silo and being told what to do? How does it feel in the season of your life to actually live it out and to hear that feedback that your kids were the expression of Jesus?
It feels like family,
uh,
from a place where I'm getting paid to take care of people while I'm being told that my kids are a problem,
mhm.
to a place of we're living this out at home, and experiencing church in a very simple and yet complex, beautiful way. And my kids are not only a part of it, but they're like a vibrant part of it. Feels like family. And it feels like, isn't this what church is supposed to be? When if they came together. And that's why I like the term family night. You think, like, we're going to come together, we're going to eat food, we're going to play cards or watch a movie. Like, that's our local leader team that we had this last Sunday night. We did our check-in and shared appreciation, and then we all snuggled on the couch with our kids and we watched Alice in Wonderland, and that was church for Sunday night. And it was exactly what it needed to be. Like, this is family, this is church, and Jesus, like, it was so holy, even if we weren't, all adults with nothing else, and we're all, in our Bibles nonstop or whatever. It was beautiful.
It sounds like that's something that Jesus might do, and surely he was with you.
Yeah.
So good.
It's beautiful.
Well, let's do this. We'll come to a time of just listening for our closing round. We'll combine it together, and we're talking to many families that
Mm,
are watching, and some people are vibrant, but they don't know how to pass on that vibrancy, and some people are working toward removing the barriers of how to be a vibrant family of Jesus. And so Luke 10 is right there in the mix. And we're able to develop resources and coordinate our global training and continuing experimenting, cultivating these vibrant families of Jesus, and rediscovering church of what it looks like to have heart-to-heart connection via the secure attachment that we're discussing. And so we're asking the Lord of the harvest to send us some generous monthly donors of people who, no guilt, no pressure, if they ask the Lord how they could participate. However he directs is what we're looking for to fuel this relational revolution. And so we'd like to give our audience time to listen of how they might want to participate, whether giving or participating in training or checking out a podcast, whatever that looks like for you. And I've listened several times, and I usually get something different of my participation, what our next steps could be. But I'd also like to bring us to a what else, Lord? What else? Our favorite question. What else do you want me to know about this call? And I think we have a few minutes because we started a little bit later. Hillary can send me a text if we need to move on quicker. But what else does the Lord want us to know? And
mm,
we'll call us back in about a minute or two. Does that sound good?
that's good.
Yeah. All right. Would you like to go first? Anything come to you?
Yeah, I just have a sense of reframing, and we're still in this process of looking at the framework. And so I heard this phrase, joy arrives when you realize that my framework is the only one that matters.
Hmm.
And so that feels like permission to
Yeah.
remove the other stuff. And then I was brought to that Matthew 11:28 in the Passion. Are you weary, carrying a heavy burden? Come to me. I will refresh your life, for I am your oasis. Simply join your life with mine. Learn my ways, and you'll discover that I'm gentle, humble, easy to please. You will find refreshment and rest in me, for all that I require of you will be pleasant and easy to bear.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I got a bunch of questions. I just heard the rabbi ask questions, and I heard these words. What if these horse whisperers, you ranchers, what if these horse whisperers are being trained to be heart whisperers in this relational revolution? What if there's untold gold to be metabolized from the grief of the past, to publish the art of presence within family, to illustrate that children are not the agitation, but the attachment, the actual attachment that tickles the Father's heart? Is this not a showcase of oneness? For there's no separation, only sweet, sweet shalom.
Can you text that to me?
Yes, I can, for sure. Yeah. So, any other closing thoughts before we turn it over?
Joy is the framework.
Joy is the framework. I like that. Well, we think. What did you say?
I closed out my last meeting with boom shakalaka joy. So
I was almost going to ask you to sing the blessing, but I don't know if we have time over these vibrant families of Jesus. You could if you want to, no pressure. But for those of you that do subscribe to a monthly donorship, it's my delight to mention that we do have our free audiobooks of our Relational Revolution, so you're going to get onto that. We do have a celebration around, I think that's the next item, and I won't say the time. I think it's 6 p.m. Eastern. And so I would check on the website to clarify that. So anything bubbling up from you?
I don't think so. I'm good with the blessing if you think we have time, but
Okay. I looked at the schedule and I think there's nothing else there. And I don't see Hillary waving any text messages. So yeah, would you bless the families and maybe the little ones in a short way to close us out, and then we'll go. Thank you.
yeah. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations in your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. Amen. 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 The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.
Thank you. Vibrant Families of Jesus, receive that blessing from the big ones, the old ones, to the little ones, as we continue to spread this benevolent virus of joy. Thank you, Josie, and shalom to you and Ross as well, and Nellie and Kinsey. Have a good rest of the day. See you later.